Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. Hearthstone's next expansion, the third expansion of year 2022, is going to be revealed shortly. I mean, we're only days away from it, no matter whether it's going to be this week, whether it's going to be next week. We're only days away from the next big reveal and the start of the next big Hearthstone hype cycle. And then everyone's going to be all cheering, yay, Hearthstone! This is so exciting, this will cement the future of the game for years to come. And then the new expansion will launch and the hype is going to die pretty quickly, at least if we look at history as an indicator. And then everyone's going to be like, okay, well, this wasn't actually that great. And then later on, there's going to be a new announcement. Everyone's, yay, this is going to fix Hearthstone. Hearthstone is going to be so great. And then we're just going to be a little bit disappointed again. And then everyone's like, hey, this wasn't actually that great. I have shown this table before in a previous video. It's a table of the web search popularity of Hearthstone as an index figure. So 100 is the maximum interest and the others are percentages of that. So interest in Hearthstone peaked with the Grand Tournament in August 2015. And since then, it's been a downward spiral, pretty much. Every time there's a standard rotation, interest picks up a little bit compared to the previous expansion, but typically year-on-year interest just does not increase. Knights of the Frozen Throne, one of the rare exceptions. Also Castle Nathria, another rare exception where year-on-year interest in Hearthstone increased when the expansion was launched. However, whereas Knights of the Frozen Throne was able to maintain some of that interest in actual lifespan of the expansion, Castle Nathria was not. Castle Nathria just fell right down back again. And this is the cycle that Hearthstone is in. But is the cycle inevitable? And if it's not inevitable, well, is it healthy? In order to look at whether this cycle is inevitable, we could compare Hearthstone to some other card games, such as Legends of Runeterra and Magic the Gathering. So this is Google Web Search. Google Web Search over the past 5 years, from 2017 until present. And as we can see here, Hearthstone was able to challenge Magic the Gathering. And of course, in the couple of years before this, when Hearthstone was even more popular than in 2017, there was more interest in Google search about Hearthstone than there was about Magic the Gathering. For a couple of years there, Hearthstone was more popular. People were trying to figure out stuff about Hearthstone more often than they were trying to figure stuff about Magic the Gathering. However, Hearthstone's trajectory has been going down, and as you can see from the yellow graph here, Magic the Gathering's trajectory actually is not going down. Magic the Gathering right now is more popular than it was 5 years ago. That's interesting for a rather mature game, after all it was released in the early 90s originally. Then we have a newer competitor, Legends of Runeterra. Runeterra, when it was released, initially interest peaked even above Hearthstone levels, not reaching Magic levels, and since then it has stabilized a little bit. I mean, that happens, that always happens. There's a new game, lots of people are interested, lots of people are trying it out. Some of those people end up saying, hey, this is really not my thing, and then it starts to stabilize at a lower level. But also looking at all of these graphs and comparing them, there's a couple of pretty worrying signs for Hearthstone. One is that Hearthstone's overall trajectory is going down, whereas the others are mainly stable as it is. I mean, Runeterra of course had the initial peak, but after that it has largely stabilized. Magic the Gathering, stable, even some increase. And then those peaks and valleys around various expansions, various launches. Hearthstone has been very, very good at hyping things up. There's always a lot of interest, hey, new Hearthstone stuff coming, tons of interest about it, and then that interest just wanes really quickly. And while we see peaks, of course, with all sorts of releases, also affecting Magic, also affecting Runeterra, we don't see nearly same levels of peaks. Hearthstone's peaks are much higher than the others compared to its average popularity, and then it comes down much harder than any of the other games as well. And the really big thing about here is the long-term viability. So here is a graph of Magic the Gathering alone. from 2004, so this is almost 20 years of Magic the Gathering. In almost 20 years of Magic the Gathering, right now Magic is just about as popular as it was 20 years ago when you look at search engine traffic. Yeah, so Magic clearly is doing something differently than Hearthstone. Runeterra is doing something different than Hearthstone. It seems that Hearthstone is really good at hyping things up, really good at making us hope that, hey, this is going to be so awesome, but not nearly as good as that in delivering. And that's really, so okay, the hype cycle. Is the hype cycle unavoidable? Clearly, looking at games of the same genre, you can see that this Hearthstone hype cycle is not inevitable. Hearthstone could be run differently. It could produce less hype, but steadier results. Another thing, is the Hearthstone hype cycle desirable? Is it healthy? As Hearthstone players, sometimes I do wonder whether we're just deluding ourselves, because Blizzard is so good at hyping things up, that then we're always like, hey, this is going to be the time, this time it's going to be great. Come back to the game, spend some money, give Blizzard some money, and then leave again, disappointed. And then coming back again and again, although in smaller and smaller numbers, unlike with some other card games that don't have the same effect. So overall, it seems to me that Blizzard has not been that great at thinking in the long term, building Hearthstone in the long term. And of course the expansion, the design cycles, of course, are also evidence of this. Hearthstone barely knowing what's going to happen next year, Magic the Gathering having it all planned out for a couple of years in advance, knowing what full standard metas are going to play like. Hearthstone has no clue. They don't even know what their core set is going to be like for the sets that are going to be released during that core set. And this sort of long-term thinking, if we look at what Hearthstone, I mean, if we want Hearthstone to be viable in the long term, they would also have to start thinking long term. They would have to start delivering long term. Instead of delivering these short term dopamine fixes, these hypes, we would really need a steadier, more fulfilling Hearthstone to be delivered. And I'm not sure if Blizzard is capable of that. And sometimes I do wonder whether the players fully realize the roller coaster ride that we're being put through over and over again, and whether that's going to be healthy for the players either. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and a special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, YouTube members and Twitch subscribers who make all of these videos possible.